west of the Rockies. You're on the air. Hello.
Art Bell?
Yes, turn your radio off, please.
Okay, I'm in my cellular. I'm rolling into Albuquerque, New Mexico. My name is Pete.
Okay.
I listen to you every morning on the way to work, and I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. See, I had my car in the shop, and I had a show car getting painted, and it was in the shop for 3 years.
3 years?
For 3 years, it was in the shop.
Getting painted? Wait a minute. You had a car in the shop 3 years getting painted?
Yeah, it was a show car. So anyway...
What, was somebody doing this with a toothpick?
No, it was all custom. Everything was torn apart.
But
that's not the point why I'm calling you. What I'm calling was, I saw this UFO sitting on the top of this plateau, and I used to drive to this body shop 30 miles from Albuquerque south, and that's the time when those cows were getting mutilated that time, and the government couldn't figure out what was going on.
Yeah, it was in all the papers there.
Right. Okay. Me and my wife had gone down to the body shop that day. We didn't see nothing that day. On the way back, we were coming towards Albuquerque, and we looked up to the left, and there was this big, huge craft. It looked like it was big as a mall. And my wife said, "Look at that." And I pulled over, and we looked at it for a while, and I said, "God, that is unbelievable."
Well, that's quite exciting.
Well, let's get off and walk over there. She goes, I'm not going over there. I'm not about to get dissected. But that thing was so huge.
Wives are usually smarter.
Yeah. This is the truth. Every time I talk to somebody about it, they say I'm crazy or something, And me and my wife are the only ones that have seen this. And at that time...
Is your wife with you?
No, we're separated now.
Oh, I see.
I have a different wife now.
Oh, I see.
But anyway, that time when, just before that helicopter had blew up with all them troops in it. I don't know if you remember it. It was on the news.
Well, I remember a number of incidents.
Yeah, well, my mom and my sister were coming back from Tucson at that time.
But why do you connect one with the other? What does that have to do with it?
The reason why I didn't tell the government about it, because I was scared to get, because they had came to my house and questioned my mom up and down.
Well, I think I may have the answer if you'll just listen on the air. Obviously, I have never heard of any paint job that takes 3 years. And they took so long in painting your car that obviously some sort of time distortion developed. I mean, I don't care what they were doing. There's no way on God's green earth that the best of custom work can take 3 years. It is in itself a giant time distortion.
What you're about to hear came to me on the internet from Donna Higbee. Donna Higbee is doing an investigation into something that I've been curious about my entire life. A spontaneous human invisibility. As she says, and we're going to try and find Donna Higbee, thank you very much, because she sounds like she'd be a very good guest. In the summer of 1994, she says, I became aware of a very strange phenomena, human, spontaneous, involuntary invisibility, which was apparently happening to people in the U.S. When I checked with other researchers, and I discovered that a number of them had also heard of such cases, so I decided to place an inquiry letter in several well-known journals asking other researchers and the general public if they'd had any experiences of this nature that they'd like to share with me. Besides the publication of my inquiry letter, my inquiry was placed on several internet bulletin boards, and the letters began pouring in, giving me a broader picture of this phenomena. And I'd like to share a few of the stories with you. My inquiry letter told the story of Vera in Ventura, California, who tried to get assistance in a post office. Can you imagine this? Only to be completely ignored by other customers and the postal clerk. Now, I've kept in touch with Vera, and she has had other apparent invisibility experiences in stores and other public places. Sheila in Roanoke, Texas, continues to have invisibility experiences, some of which have occurred in restaurants and at the airport. Glenda in Fort Worth, Texas, has had these experiences occur in a cafeteria and a movie theater. Most of the cases that I have researched have been in the U.S., although I do know of cases in England, Europe, Australia, Puerto Rico, and Brazil. Now, I think she's on to something here, folks, Because if somebody, even yourself, were to become invisible, there'd be no story to tell other than yours, would there? Because nobody else saw you. How do we know that people, on occasion, do not spontaneously become virtually invisible, actually invisible? She goes on, in every case that I've heard of or personally researched, the person is physically still present, although simply unable to be seen or heard. From the point of view of the invisible person, the world looks normal and they've got no idea that they can't be seen or heard by people around them. I'll address how this might occur a little further along in the article, but first, I want to give you a few examples below. The quotes are directly from the experiencers to me. Jean in Tucson, Arizona, wrote me of her experiences. She's had them occur in the library, where she attempted to check out books, and in clothing stores. The following is a quote from her letter, showing the humor with which she deals with these occurrences. I've had this happen in stores, in restaurants, many places. I remember joking to a friend of mine one time that I felt like I could walk into a bank, help myself to a pile of bills, and nobody would ever see me because I was invisible. There is no physical reason why I should be. In fact, I'm taller than average for my sex and age group. I'm 55 years old and 5'9", referred to as good-looking, and I've always worn my hair red. You wouldn't think a tall woman with red hair, high heels, in a purple dress, and dangle earrings would be invisible, would you? No, Jean, I sure wouldn't. Or perhaps the story from a 37-year-old man, Peter, in England, who was at a private party in 1987, walked, get this, upstairs to use the bathroom, and was followed by a woman, who also wanted to use the bathroom. Well, the woman motioned for him to go first. She stood outside the door to wait her turn. So Peter used the bathroom, opened the door, walked out into the hallway, closing the door behind him. He went on down the stairs and walked over to some friends and started talking to them. They all ignored him completely. He thought they were playing a joke on him, so he walked away and found his girlfriend and asked her for a cigarette. She, too, acted like she didn't see or hear him. Now Peter's getting angry and thought the joke had gone too far. So he decided to walk back upstairs and catch the woman coming out of the bathroom and ask her for a cigarette. He says, I walked back up the stairs, and upon reaching the bathroom landing, I came across the girl again, who was standing outside the bathroom door, clearly still waiting for me to come out. When she saw me, her face dropped in surprise, for clearly she thought I was still in the bathroom. Peter returned to the party downstairs, and then all of a sudden everything was normal again. He was able to be seen and heard normally. When he questioned his friends and his girlfriend as to why they had ignored him, all swore they had never seen nor heard him. Obviously, the woman upstairs had not seen him come out of the bathroom and go downstairs. Now comes the case of Melanie in Ventura, California, who became invisible while sitting on her own living room sofa and staring at the wall, lost in her own thoughts. Her husband was walking around the house looking for her, couldn't see her sitting there just several feet away from where he was walking. Now this lasted for about 10 minutes. Then, suddenly, she was visible again. Her husband was quite upset with her and thought she'd been hiding from him. She assured him that she had been sitting there all along, but to this day, he doesn't believe her. Or how about Janice in Minneapolis, Minnesota, who's had a number of invisibility experiences throughout her life? One reported here lasted longer than usual. As a teenager, she fell in with a group of friends who decided to see if they could actually steal something from a department store and not get caught. Well, as luck would have it, the entire group was caught and taken into custody, including Janice. They were taken to the police station, and one by one they were questioned, all that is, except Janice. Although she was standing right there, no one paid the slightest attention to her, not the police, the guards, or the office personnel. She finally just got up and walked out of the police station without ever being questioned or anyone attempting to stop her. When she later talked with her friends about what happened at the police station, they didn't recall me being taken into custody at the department store, yet I rode in the police car with everyone else, and they thought I was still at the store. No one had seen her from the moment the police had arrived on the scene in the store until sometime after she had walked out of the police station unhindered. What is happening? Why is this occurring? How? We don't have any answers for these questions yet, but in trying to learn more about invisibility, I came across some information that I wanted to share with you, and she goes on. She begins to do some research on all of this, and I've got quite a bit on that. So I guess my first question to you is this woman really on to something? Is this another one of those events that appears to be occurring right now that we have no explanation for?
Art, I buy stuff at auctions, and I bought some stuff down out of Mercury down there, and they delivered it to me.
Wait a minute. You're telling me you bought Mercury test site items at auction?
Right. I have affairs with the government, and I buy stuff from down there.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Like their cast-off pile?
Right. It's
spare alien parts and...
whatever. It's a general auction to contractors that buy from the government. And I got this oddball machine
yes.
that I bid on.
Yes.
And I've been feeding power to it. I got three-phase power, and I've been feeding power to it.
Wait a minute. Back up. Hold it. Back up. Describe the machine to me.
Oh, it stands about 6.5 feet tall, and it's semicircular. With a seat inside.
With a what?
There's a seat inside.
A seat inside?
Uh-huh. And
what kind of controls, or?
It's got all kinds of controls in it.
It does.
And I sat there and I've been playing with it, and my notebook came up missing.
Your computer?
No, my notebook.
You mean like a paper?
Writing down
notebook.
what I took and put into it.
You put your notebook in it?
Yeah.
And you applied power to this thing?
Right.
Three-phase?
Three-phase.
220?
220. And my notebook disappeared.
Are you telling me the truth, or are you yanking on my chain?
No. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's
Well, you did a pretty good job just then. Look. Let's approach it this way. You got a camera?
Yeah.
Don't put it in the machine. Take a picture of the machine.
Okay.
Send me a picture of the machine.
All right.
It's got a machine with a chair in it.
Uh-huh.
And you're claiming that a notebook disappeared when you applied power.
Uh-huh. I can't find the damn notebook nowhere. And that's the only place that I had it. Has
it occurred to you, or even crossed your mind, that maybe there is an auction like you describe, and maybe you did buy a machine like you've described, but has it crossed your mind that what you're doing might be dangerous?
Well, I buy a bunch of stuff from the government. I buy all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think I've got that. But I ask again, sir, has it occurred to you that what you're doing might be dangerous?
Well, why would it be dangerous?
Because you could go the way of your notebook.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Well, all right. Well, look, all I can say is send me a photograph of this thing. Then we'll talk, all right?
Okay.
All right, thank you. I have no comment to make on that beyond if I get a picture, and I'd lay that one out as about 50-50, maybe 60-40 against. But if I get a picture, believe me, we'll talk. And I certainly was not aware, but I would not be surprised. But they auction things off. The government, more than once, in fact, I've seen 60 minutes pieces where the government auctions off F-16s in pieces, you know, that kind of thing. People have put together. It's incredible, actually.
Yes, Art.
Yes.
How you doing? It's Don from Georgia.
Georgia, all right. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I just want to relay an experience I had, I guess about 6 years ago. I was working a job where I was working from 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning.
My kind of job.
Well, I usually got home around 6:30, and I usually did the same thing when I walked through the door. I will put my lunch container on the counter, go to the front door and turn the porch light off, go in and kiss my wife and take my shower.
The routine.
Yeah, routine, just about every day. And this particular morning, when I got home, I went through the routine, and I went to go kiss my wife, and she wasn't there. So I said, So I went to the den, and she was behind the door. And she looked very frightened. And I asked her what was wrong with her.
Yeah.
She said, you were here 30 minutes ago.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, really?
The thing with it is, she heard me come through the door, and she heard the lunch container hit the counter.
Right.
And she waited a while, and I didn't show up in the bedroom, so she walked around the house looking for me and calling my name. And it frightened her because I wasn't there.
Of course. And then you're telling me 30 minutes later, you came home for what you considered to be the first time.
Right.
And she's totally freaked out behind the door.
That's correct. And it puzzled me for a while. But the strange thing happened sometime, it was a few months this year. Her and some of her teacher friends went to see the movie Vanilla Sky.
Yes.
And I had the girls at home. We was looking at TV and just watching TV, waiting for her to get back. And all of a sudden, I heard her call my name from the other side of the house.
Oh.
And the strangest thing, my girls heard it too, and they both looked at me and they said, "Dad, is a mom out eating dinner with our teacher friends?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, I heard her call your name." And I don't want them to get frightened. So I said, "Well, you might have been hearing things, but I heard it. It was clear, loud and clear. Matter of fact, I almost responded to it." So I walked to the other side of the house because I figured that something must be wrong for her to call my name like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel any bad vibrations at all.
Did she have anything to say when she got home?
When she came home, I met her at the garage. I wanted to discuss that, away from the kids. I asked her what was she doing around 8:25 because that's when it happened.
Yes.
And she said, well, they were in the restaurant, and they was discussing the movie Vanilla Sky, and I hadn't seen the movie, but it was like some kind of spiritual thing there or whatever. And they said, let's do this thing where we can think about our loved ones and see if they can feel us. I said, well, I'll be.
That's some story.
Yes, it is.
There's so much more than we understand, isn't there?
Sure is.
And it's all around us, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot, Art.
Right, take care. There's so much more that we just don't understand. The kind of thing that is discussed on this program. And I'm comfortable, with the fact that a lot of people ridicule and a lot of people laugh, and that's fine. But time after time, I've been here enough years now, that time after time I've seen the laughable become the reality. So if you want to hear what's discussed nowhere else, at least some good percentage of which has the possibility of becoming absolute reality, this would be the place. And why it's not done in more places, I don't know.
And I'm wondering...
How far back the recordings go?
Yes, sir.
I believe that they probably go back... it's a rough guess, all right? But I think about 91 or 92.
Oh, excellent. Now, the second question is, I'm interested in a particular call I made to you, probably around 91 or 2.
Oh,
and
boy.
It was just an open line.
Yeah, I understand. What did you say that was so monumental?
Well, I'm in the process now of getting material copyrighted, because I believe it parallels very closely a lot of what your guests say.
Getting what material copyrighted?
Well, the content of the call.
Okay, which was what? Yeah, you mean you can't tell us?
Well, basically, I think you'll probably remember if I tell you. I was asleep, and then something told me to look down, and I did, and I was there. I was sitting up, but my body was also asleep right next to where I was sitting.
You were out of body.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Then the wall lit up, and turned a really intense bright white. Then these little black holes opened up. And
oh, God, I do remember this call now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I remember this call.
Yes, sir. I'd like to try and track that down if I could. How would I proceed?
Oh, lots of luck. Now, when I said I record shows, sir.
Yes, sir.
We record shows with guests. We don't record well, yes, we do actually, but we don't hold for years and years.
You jettison those. Huh?
We jettison those because, of course, they're generally time sensitive, and so you can't save everything.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your call. Now, what this caller is referring to, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but the odds are against it if it was in an open line segment. This caller obviously believes that he saw an opening to another dimension. That's what this caller was referring to. And I do remember the call. Isn't that odd? After all those years, when he began to talk about the black hole's opening, all of a sudden, ba-boom, I remembered. That's really strange. I wonder how many facts our brain can hold before it spills over. I mean, why would I remember that call? That must mean that I would remember hundreds of thousands of calls. How can a brain hold all of that? Eventually, you get full. Your brain gets full. And you put a new fact in and an old fact falls out. Right? Must happen. Or you just get old. I don't know. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hello, Art. This is Gina in Vegas. I've been trying to get a hold of you for about 2 months.
Yes, well, you've got me.
Yeah, I have. For the past 2 months, my sister has been invaded by extraterrestrials.
Your sister has?
Yeah. They live in the Midwest, and both my brother and sister, they're elderly, and they live together. And it started one night about 2 months ago. She got in bed, and something grabbed her by the foot.
I hate these kinds of stories.
Yeah. She pulled her foot back, and they grabbed her foot again and stuck a needle in it.
I really hate those stories.
Yeah. Then they proceeded to try to get hold of her back of her head, and she pulled the covers up around her. And they pulled the covers back and sprayed the back of her head and stuck a needle in her head. Well, they wrapped her in a blanket and tried to lift her up, and she got scared and rolled across the bed and ran in and got my brother. And then she locked herself in the bathroom. And he thought she was imagining it, so he went and laid on her bed. And they sat on his feet.
They sat on his feet.
Yep. So he kicked them off. But they don't seem to bother him as much. She's kind of gotten used to them now. They put a probe up her nose. But they've gotten to where they sleep on the bed with her.
I would, if that was me, I would be wanting to talk to an exorcist right now.
No. What they're doing is, she thinks they're geneticists.
Whatever they are, whoever they are, I would do something real quick.
Call us toll-free at 1-800-618-8255.
Let me rephrase that. I would not for 1 second put up with anything grabbing my ankles. I sure as hell wouldn't put up with anybody spraying the back of my head and stuffing a needle in there. I would take some sort of very drastic, direct action. She's used to it? She's getting used to it, did you say? That these things sleep in the bed with her, did you say? Not for me, not in this lifetime. Before that needle ever sunk into the back of my head, I'd be dead of a heart attack.
Hi, Art. This is Mike from the Pacific Northwest.
Hello, Mike.
Hi. I think everybody needs to read Dr. Jacobs' book, The Threat. I really think that he has hit it on the head.
Well, that's right. I think that anybody who buys into this warm, fuzzy little creature thing is naive beyond reason.
Yeah, the altruistic thing of a total alien race that, according to his book, are using us. They're raping our women, impregnating them, taking the fetuses. That cannot be good. And the government is either powerless to stop them,
or in cooperation with them.
And I think that it's up to the citizens of this country to do what we can to dissuade these people. Either something primitive, like homemade Fletchet rockets, unguided, with fins, sharp-pointed, armor-piercing, to get in there to that bismuth magnesium layers and short them out. Something.
Now, I'm not sure that shooting at them is the answer.
Well, how else?
Whether they're whether they're extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial, shooting at them has got to be probably a poor bet.
Well, when you look at the Zulu tribes against the British, other tribes that took on a more powerful force, it was the very basic primitive technology that really worried that particular aggressor. When you look at the Afghanis against the Soviet Union or Vietnamese against us, we were terrified of punji sticks and everything else. It made us more leery, more cautious, made them, Russians, more cautious. I think unless we do something, it's going to continue. I mean, what they're doing to our women and men in this country is unconscionable. We do need to get the word out. Obviously, people don't want to listen. Of course, how can it be illegal to shoot a rocket at a UFO? I mean, who's going to believe you?
Well,
it's not written anywhere. Don't shoot rockets at UFOs.
Well, the way things are going, I'm sure the Indian government will fire something off at one of them, and that'll be it for us. I appreciate the call, sir, but I don't know. Remember during Independence Day, they had to have signs up. Please do not shoot at the saucers. And what were people in L.A. doing? Boom, 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 shooting at the saucers. Actually, as it turned out, they might as well have. Because they only wanted to kill us anyway. But, before you know what their intentions are, shooting at them as, to start with, is probably not very well advised. Dare we try again? On my alien line, you're on the air.
Hi, my name is Jimmy.
You sound like a very young alien, Jimmy.
Yes, I'm 11 years old.
And you're an alien?
Well, my mom, she's, a Pathian.
Say that again.
Pathian?
And is that the name of a planet?
No, it's an alien.
I see. So it's a race.
Yeah, like you have people.
Yes.
That's our name.
What about? Oh, I see. What about your father?
He's a human.
A human. So this is a sort of it's more than interracial marriage. It's an interspecies marriage.
Yeah.
And you are the product of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you speak, your English is quite good.
Oh, I don't have that accent, so.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. How is it being half human, half alien? I mean, do you have some instincts that are alien and some that are human?
No, I'm not really sure, but I see ghosts and I see auras.
You do?
Yes.
Well, there are some humans who claim to be able to see auras as well. So maybe that's just part of your human characteristic. I mean, is there anything... How many fingers do you have?
I have 5.
5. How about toes?
5.
How about the rest of all the plumbing? About the same?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no real physical difference?
No.
How about the way you think? Do you have alien thoughts?
Well, I'm not really sure.
Well, then how are you? Well, what has your mom told you? I mean, did she sit you down? How old were you when she sat you down and said, look, I've got something shocking to tell you. You're not all human.
Well,
When did you find out about that?
I'm gonna think about 7 or 8. I started realizing it, Then she started telling me and all that.
All right, my friend. Thank you. A young alien.
I just want to tell you a story.
Okay.
I've been listening all night.
What is your first name?
Jeannie.
Jeannie. And where are you?
I'm in Grants Pass, Oregon.
Okay. Fire away.
Okay. Well, when I was 17, I had gotten really, really sick. And I was in bed. My mom had covered me with a lot of blankets. And when I woke up, all the blankets were over my head. And I could feel somebody shaking me. So I flipped the blankets off me, and standing there was a man that I had a glowing orange, one of those electric heaters in the corner of my room.
Oh, yes.
And what I saw was I could see he had blonde hair, he had green eyes, he was wearing a plaid shirt, jeans, and when I got scared was because I saw that he was floating. He was about a foot off the floor.
Oh, my God. Why? I'm curious. If he was shaking you, why would you? The last thing I would have done was throw the covers off me. I'd probably bury myself in them.
Well, that's what I did. I yanked the covers right back over my head. I screamed for my mom.
Yeah.
And nobody came, and I tried to listen for footsteps going out of the door. Even though I could see through him, I could see my orange heater in the background.
Right through him.
I could see right through him, but I could still see him, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Perfectly clearly. So I couldn't hear any footsteps. Nobody left. My mom didn't come in the room, and so I peeked out underneath the covers to make sure nobody was standing there, and I walked out into, down my hallway. When I got to the end of the hallway, I passed the kitchen. Nobody was in the kitchen. Nobody was in the dining room. I get to the living room, and the TV was on, and it was all staticky. It was like just a static channel. Right. And I stood there. Nobody's there. I looked in all the bedrooms because bedrooms were to the right, and nobody was in the house. And the TV switched off, and I took off out of the front door, and I ran next door, and that's where my mom was. So she told me it was just a dream. So 5 years later, I saw the same spirit. He had come to me in a dream and taken me to a room and was telling me that my boyfriend, which was my son's father at the time, was going to hurt me. And I said, no, he's not going to hurt me. He would never hurt me. He said, you need to get out. He's going to hurt you. I said, why should I have to get out? I don't want to leave my things. These are my things. I shouldn't have to leave. He's not going to hurt me. And he goes, you need to get out. And he screamed, get out, really loud. And then all of a sudden I was back in my bed, and he was floating over me. And the next thing I knew is I had landed on my back on the floor right next to where my son's father was sleeping. And it was like I bounced from my bed onto the floor. I didn't roll, just bounced. And the next day we did get in an argument. And right there in the spot where I had landed the night before, he choked me until I believe I was dead.
Oh, God.
And he couldn't wake me up. He said I had turned blue. And he was slapping me, and I could hear him slapping me, and I can hear him talking, but I couldn't feel it. And he was crying. His tears were dripping on my face, but I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't remember anything. But it's if I ever see that entity again or that spirit, I will absolutely listen instead of argue.
Yeah, I guess if you get a warning like that, it means something. It's hard to know, isn't it? If if somebody comes to you, you can imagine it's in a dream, and I suppose the first instinct is to believe, particularly after it's over for a while. Your mind does that as, kind of a protective measure. Well, it was a dream. But then, of course, when it comes true, next time you listen. Chupacabra, it comes and goes. The Jersey Devil. I have books about the Jersey Devil.
Yes. I've investigated all of them, by the way. I've been tracking the Jersey Devil in the Pine Barrens with a team, with a group of hunters, and even had a lead on a direct descendant of the Jersey Devil.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you organize and then decide where you're going to go to hunt these creatures? I mean, do you operate on tips? What do you do?
Well, in this case, I mean, in this day and age, of course, the Internet has made things much more accessible, and we tried to find, in the case with Monster Hunters, which was a series I created, and I'm a filmmaker, so I go out there, and my wife and I, we both go out there and produce these shows and direct them, and I'm often shooting myself. So I get firsthand experience, and I want to find people that are, credible, hunters. They're not just, fanatically interested in something, but they actually, have a basis for their hunts, and so that we can go out and see what they are up to. And in the case of the Jersey Devil, I mean, it's a fascinating phenomenon, because here's a bona fide American legend. Not that much is known about it by the general public. It has a fantasy, if you will, supernatural component. That is, it's born of the 13th child of Mother Leeds. The 13th child, Mother Leeds, late one stormy night, is going to give birth. She's had 12 children. She doesn't want the 13th one. She said, let this one be a devil. And out pops the baby. The baby transforms into a demon. In some stories, kills the parents and bites their neck, and then crashes through the glass and out into the Pine Barrens to haunt it forever. That's the legend.
No kidding. Now, I've got some books. I have never read that. Mm-hmm. I've always read about contemporary sightings or whatever of the Jersey Devil, but I had no idea how it was. The myth behind it was.
It's a wonderful legend, because the Jersey Devil pops up at time when America is under stress, when America is about to go to war. It's a portent of war. It appeared just before Pearl Harbor. It appeared during the American Revolution. It was, it was shot at by Admiral Decatur, with a Commodore Decatur with a cannon shot through its wing. Apparently, American Revolutionary hero. There was, Napoleon Bonaparte's brother lived in New Jersey for a while, and he sighted it in a hunting party. There were, there've been many sightings. In 1911, that's when thousands of people across 3 states claimed they saw it, and there were armed shotgun riders riding on the trolley cars in Pennsylvania. And
wow!
And it was even at one point a fire department had the Jersey Devil trapped on the roof of a house, and was using a fire hose to try and get it down. And they ran, this is 1911, so they ran out of water. It jumps down. They're throwing sticks and rocks at it. And 2 policemen that same year said they shot at the Jersey Devil. What is it that, we're in the 20th century now. We're not back in Salem witch trial era. What did these so-called, modern 20th century humans, what did they see? What were they fighting?
I'm going to ask you to describe the Jersey Devil. I've heard Bigfoot, of course, described many times. Chupacabra is described many times, but I've never heard a description of the Jersey Devil.
Well, this is where it, potentially crosses over into, your kind of devil Christian iconography. I mean, that he's described as having, this horse-like head, and then bat wings, a cloven hooves, a forked tail. But the head is always, less devil-like, I would say, than even like a camel or a devil or a horse-like head. And we talked. What's fascinating is we went into the backwoods. There's people there called the Pineys, who are descendants of Hessian mercenaries from the American Revolutionary Wars that still live in the Pine Barrens.
Wow.
And we were actually fortunate. They invited us to like a guitar jamboree that they had there. I mean, this is 2 hours south of New York City, right? And or less. And the Jersey Devil is theirs. It's their story. It's their creature, if you will. They talk about, these modern people talk about going out in the woods and cutting lumber, cutting timber, and hearing a wailing, screaming sound that is louder than their power saws, their chainsaws. And they talk about being woken in the middle of the night repeatedly over the course of a year with screams coming from a swamp that sounded like a woman being torn apart, is how they described it.
Yes.
So, what is this? I mean, no one's getting famous over this. They're not, again, there's people not, they're not making money. I don't think the Inquirer's been there lately. So why are they describing these things? What did they hear? And there is something biological going on in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Maybe it's a big crane, maybe, it's been speculated by some people that there's a crack in the earth there and some kind of pterodactyl has gotten on the loose.
Okay, well, isn't that another way, Peter, of explaining that these could be, for example, dimensional creatures? I mean, they have this way of coming and then apparently just almost instantly disappearing. So a crack in the earth into which they could suddenly go and just disappear is just sort of another way of explaining that they might be, they might not be real creatures, or if they are real creatures, they have a power that we don't have that in some way protects them and allows them to disappear virtually without a trace.
Well, I think that's another way you could look at it. I mean, I'll tell you something. I've been all over the world. I've been in the Amazon many times. I've been in jungle environments. I've done, this year I did some films in haunted homes with families being plagued by supernatural entities. And the Pine Barrens in New Jersey was the creepiest place that I've ever been in.
No kidding.
Hair on the back of my neck was standing up all the time when I was in there because, for one thing, it gets very dark in there. It's as soon as the sun sets, I don't know if you've been in the eastern woods, but it's like the Amazon. These cicadas or something, they start up. So you've got on a level of, out of 10, a 7 out of 10 on the audio level. You've got this piercing, buzzing sound, just like eating your brain, as you're trying to focus and trying to look for something.
I know the sound.
And then, as you're going through this dark, dark woods where it's very easy to get lost, there are forgotten towns. There are Victorian-era entire towns lost in the woods in New Jersey, where you come across old buildings and just dilapidated homes. There are graves everywhere. There are family plots. You stumble over tombstones when you're walking in the forest there.
It just, for a lot of the audience, it doesn't sound reasonable for this to be so in New Jersey, but I can assure the audience it is, in fact, the case. There's a lot of wild New Jersey. It sounds crazy because you think of Jersey, you think of, I don't know, Newark, Patterson, the cities, but there's an area of New Jersey, just as Peter is describing, and if you want to prove it to yourself, be my guest.
The locals don't like to go out at night. In Leeds Point, which is Jersey Devil Central, we talked to several people. They don't like to wander the streets, the roads, the rural roads at night.
And be honest, Art, nowadays it's a smoker's dream job to work from home. Ann in Gig Harbor, Washington. You're damn right, Ann. That's as honest as I can be. You're right.